Do you feel frustrated trying to grow your franchise? Are you having trouble balancing your consumer and franchise development marketing? Do you wish there was an easier way? Imagine if you had a proven roadmap to take your franchise's marketing from costing you to making you money. That's why we've created the Franchise Growth Blueprint. We walk you through the exact same process that we use to run franchise marketing campaigns for our clients at scale that has resulted in triple-digit growth. This blueprint isn't for anyone. It's not for people just starting a franchise. It's not for franchises without long-term goals. This is for franchises that want to scale up their marketing in a predictable and profitable way using a proven roadmap. If you want to sell more franchises, keep your current franchisees happy, and learn from people who have already done it, go to franchisegrowthblueprint.com and sign up today. That's franchisegrowthblueprint.com.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Franchise Marketing Podcast. Very excited. Today, I have Jon Ostenson, who is the CEO and partner of FranBridge Consulting and Capital. Jon, welcome to the show.
Jordan, thanks for having me. Looking forward to our conversation. Love what you're doing.
Awesome. Well, love what you're doing. You are just steeped in franchise industry experience. So for our listeners who haven't heard of you, who are you? What do you do? What's your background?
Absolutely. So, my background, like so many franchise candidates out there, I spent a good bit of my career in the corporate world, had a good run, and really entered into franchising about 5 years ago with Shelf Genie franchise system based here in Atlanta. I came in, headed up the home office, ran the day-to-day support operations for our franchisees, and really fell in love with franchising through that experience. And long story short, ended up partnering with the founder of Shelf Genie, along with another partner. We're now franchisees ourselves. So now we're on the other side of the table. We've got several property services brands here in the Southeast that we're franchisees of. And I spend probably 10% of my time on that piece of the business, FranBridge Capital, and about 90% of my time on the FranBridge Consulting side, where I'm affiliated with the franchise consulting company, work with about 300 franchise brands. Many of them are emerging brands, helping them find great candidates out there in the market and playing matchmaker. So love that aspect of what I do, and getting out there and educating a lot of people that don't have franchising on their radar or don't understand within franchising how to navigate the world of opportunities.
Awesome. So before we move on to the consulting side, I do want to ask you, what was it like moving from franchisor to franchisee? Because a lot of the cases are actually inverse. So love to hear your perspective on it.
Yeah, I'd say Alan Young, who's my partner, I'd say for both of us moving to the other side of the table, it's been a good experience. We love being supported instead of having to be the supporter. So it's we understand, I think, having been the franchisor, how they view franchisees, how they view the business, what we can ask of them, what we can't. But we've just partnered with some great brands with great leaders behind them, and we've leaned on them. We acknowledge their expertise. We follow the system like every franchisor wishes every franchisee would. So I'd say we've done a pretty good job of living within those boundaries that they've set out.
Awesome. I love it. Okay. So let's switch gears. Let's move over to the consulting side. So you work with emerging franchisors, helping them find new franchisees. What's your experience been like so far with this?
Yeah, so it's been great. It has been great. It is a great time to be in franchising. There's so much interest right now. The reports that I would subscribe to show that franchise sales are projected to be up 40% this year over pre-pandemic levels. So we are seeing what I would call a renaissance in franchising, and a lot of interest out there. I think coming out of COVID, a lot of people want that sense of control. They want to get a side hustle. I believe it's close to 40% now of working people have a side hustle of some sort. So what I found is a lot of people don't know where to start. They don't know what they're looking for. About 80% of my clients end up buying into something that was never on their radar in an industry they never thought of, which is a lot of fun for me. But yeah, really just a lot of interest out there. I mean, I look at our deal flow year to date, and we've exceeded our objectives, and just have fun. Every case is different. You're trying to hold the hand of the candidate through the process, and help them play matchmaker with the right franchisors. But where our biggest challenges right now is definitely not lead flow. It's more on it's very competitive within good markets for good brands. And so I'm always positioning my clients against other candidates out there and trying to win the franchisor's approval of mine over the other ones. So it's competitive, but it's a great time to be in franchising.
Awesome. That is great to hear. So, you mentioned that there's a lot of education at play, helping candidates really understand why franchising may be a good fit for them. So, it's like, talk to me more about that kind of nitty gritty level of education that you need to provide.
Yeah, I think for a lot of them, it's understanding, first off, are they too entrepreneurial to enter into the world of franchising? I find this with a lot of my peer group in the entrepreneurs organization. I have to tell them, you won't want to stay within the boundaries. You want to put your thumbprints all over everything. And so it's really educating them on, here's why you buy into a franchise system. A, you've got a playbook. In some cases, that brand is recognized. In a lot of cases, it may not be yet. That's less important. In a lot of cases, it's the franchisor support, who is that coach on the sidelines with aligned interests. Is having other franchise owners across the across the country or across North America that you can tap into and benefit from, testing different marketing vehicles, sharing advice, best practices, learnings. Again, the better you do, the more valuable their franchises are. So really, it's that shared support network. And also educate people on, when you become a business owner, you have the cash flow, but you're also building up an asset that's going to have exit value down the road. And you're able to write off a lot of expenses. And right now, with taxes, on the verge of going up, a lot of people like that idea of, seeing small business ownership as one of the last bastions of tax beneficial treatment, if you will. So, it's helping them understand those different dimensions as well as down the road. I mean, from an exit value standpoint, there was a recent study done of over 2,000 businesses over the past 10 years, and they looked at franchise businesses versus non-franchise in a comparable space. And what they found, and this was really eye-opening, is that franchise businesses trade at a multiple, typically 1.5 times non-franchise businesses. They're at the exit, and so helping people understand that aspect of it as well, helps the light bulb go on.
Very interesting. I did not know about the multiplier. So, you mentioned pre-recording that you're going down to Florida, chatting with a whole lot of emerging brands. So I'm curious, like, how can emerging brands really start to crush it with franchise development when they don't necessarily have a ton of experience under their belt?
Yeah. So no, I'll be down in Florida all of next week with a franchise consulting company and several hundred franchisors, many of which are emerging brands. So looking forward to that. We do that about twice a year. I do talk to a lot of brands that have either just franchised or they're thinking about franchising. And so I love having those conversations and being an advocate for the industry and helping them understand here are the pros and cons. I mean, franchising presents a great way to leverage other people's money, get skin in the game. You have the ability to potentially scale very quickly. I get calls from private equity all the time, like multiple times a week, saying, "Hey, do you know any emerging franchisors that can use some money and would like to, potentially have an exit or share some equity?" So, franchising on the franchisor side is a great spot to be in. The flip side is, all of a sudden you wake up and you've got a lot of kids that all have expectations, and you're trying to keep them happy. And that, at least that was my experience as a franchisor. So, there are definitely trade-offs. It's not right for every business, but once you make that jump into franchising, some of the advice that I give, I'd say one of the biggest things is, as a new franchisor, how you spend your time is so important, and it is so easy to get caught in that franchise development trap of trying to be penny wise, pound foolish, and doing all the qualifying and vetting of candidates yourself. If you're having to go through the brand presentations up front, the FDD reviews, the territory definition, that is not the best use of your time. What you need to be focused on is those new franchisees that have just entered your system, getting them off to a great start and setting them up for success. That is so important from a long-term potential standpoint. So the solve to that I recommend to a lot of them is to use a development group. There are a couple of great development groups out there that work with emerging brands that will come alongside them, that will, ultimately you still get the say in who enters your franchise system. But if they can cover those first couple of steps and act as an extension of your team and do the qualifying and the vetting and the initial presentations, and then you really have your serious contenders that have checked all the boxes that you spend your time with down the road, that just frees up your day to spend in a much more supportive way for your franchisees. The other thing I would say is those first couple of franchisees are so key to your future success. I mean, they're the ones they're going to be doing the validating. They're the ones that are building your item 19. So I know I've seen some franchises get a little desperate early on because they haven't had that lead flow. But I would just encourage them to hold out for the right candidates.
Okay. So tell me more about finding that partner, that extension of your franchise development process. Like, what are some things that emerging brands should be looking for?
Yeah, there's several great groups out there, from Franchise Fastlane to FranDevco to Brand One, groups like that. There are a few others as well. And so typically what I'll do is, and I don't charge for any of this. I mean, I'm happy to hop on a call with anyone's listening here and kind of share the pros and cons of each of those groups. Cause I work on the other side. I get to see them and my clients have been through their experience. So I'm happy to share, make introductions as well. But typically I hear, I can kind of get a sense after a few minutes of talking with an emerging brand of which group might be the best fit for them and the types of candidates that they're looking to attract.
Mhm.
So I've seen all the processes of each of the development groups play out. I know who knows how to close. I know the ones that don't as well. So happy to share that with anyone.
Awesome. And diving deeper into this, is there a time where it's too early for an emerging brand to actually talk to these partners?
We'll get right back to the show, but do you feel frustrated trying to grow your franchise? Are you having trouble balancing your consumer and franchise development marketing? Do you wish there was an easier way? Imagine if you had a roadmap to take your franchise's marketing from costing you to making you money. That's why we've created the Franchise Growth Blueprint. To find out more, visit franchisegrowthblueprint.com. That's franchisegrowthblueprint.com. Now back to today's episode.
No, I'd say no. I think ideally, if you have two or three, franchisees, and maybe those are friends and family that jumped on board, they've gone off to a good start. I mean, that's ideal probably. But no, quite a few brands that have only corporate locations. And in some cases, it may be one corporate location. Oftentimes it's multiple. Those partner all the time. And then I see the great growth on the back end. But picking the right one is important.
Cool. So let's shift gears a little, John. So what has been the, I guess, like process for you and biggest learnings for you when you're kind of vetting whether a candidate is good for a franchise or not? Like, what are you looking for?
I think we're all trying to figure out, are they a tire kicker or are they serious? So obviously the financial, check box is there, but understanding what their family situation is, what their career situation is, their timeline. I probably skip ahead a little faster than some consultants. And hey, let's start talking about some opportunities, potentially even on call number 2 or 3, and just gauging their reaction. I found a lot of time can be wasted kind of in the lead up to presenting opportunities. So for me personally, I jump ahead a little bit and I find I'm able to weed people out more quickly as well. So really how open-minded are they? What are their preconceived notions? Do they have a brother or a cousin who knows someone that was in franchising and had a good experience or a bad experience? It's all that baggage that you're ultimately going to have to get through. And, ultimately I'm trying to do what's right for the client and, understand, is this the right timing for them? I mean, there's never a good time, to make a jump, but is it going to be good timing for them based on the personality type? How will the franchisor interact with them? How much hand holding will they need? So, just all of that. And some of that's intuitive that just comes out in our conversations, but
Mhm.
I really trying to vet, their seriousness and whether they would be successful. I would never put a client into a system that I don't think they're set up for success.
Of course. Now, one recurring topic, throughout this podcast is judging and filtering for culture, right? Like,
Mm.
are you a good fit personality wise for a brand? So, what are some things that you're doing to figure out, okay, Joe Schmo or Jane Schmo is a good fit for franchise A instead of franchise B?
Yeah. I think a lot of it comes down to how much time can they commit? Are they a semi-absentee or are they full-time? Do they like to have a large team or, are they set on having very few employees because they don't deal well with people? Um, ultimately what I find, I don't overthink the personality side. I look for winners. I only want to
Mhm.
work with winners. I work with people that raise their hand and reach out to me. I never buy leads. I never, do a lot of things other consultants do. I've been very blessed that, people have kind of sought me out, for the consulting side. But I only want to work with those that are really serious, that really want to. I don't want to ever push someone down that path. Um, so no, it's exciting to see what's going on out there. Like I said, many of my clients, never had these opportunities on their radar, but I don't overthink the personality side. If they're a winner and they want to work hard and they want to follow the system, most franchisors would say, hey, that's who we want. And you know, frankly, as a franchisor, I mean, we had a mix of personalities. We had people from, leadership roles in corporate America. We had military backgrounds. We had stay-at-home moms. I mean, we had a lot of different types that could work. And so we didn't pigeonhole. And oftentimes we had surprises. It's some of those were like, I don't know if they would quite work, but I think they will. And then they end up being some of your top franchisees. And so it's an evolution for them too, especially if it's their first time in business ownership. So for me, that's my methodology. I don't overthink the personality side. Um, I just feel like that's not as big of a impact. But I want the candidate to understand, the franchisor. Some advice I often give is, they may be a little turned off by the franchise salesperson. Ultimately, they're salespeople, and I have to remind them, hey, you may love them, you may not. Ultimately, that relationship with the franchisor later in the process, that's what's going to matter. That's who you're going to interact with on a regular basis. That's something I always let them know.
Yeah, yeah. I think like Discovery Day does like has such a huge impact because you're no longer, in front of that salesperson. You're actually speaking, interacting with, other franchisees, what support looks like, who your main point of contacts are going to be. So that's such a good point to that. I think franchisors, especially the emerging ones, just don't realize as they're going through that sales process.
Right, right. And, back at Shelf Genie, when we'd have someone go through a discovery day process at the very end, they would hear all the support that's been provided for them. They're meeting all the teams, and they would kind of look at us and with this look on their face of, what do we do on a day-to-day basis? What determines our success if you guys are doing all this for us? And my answer every time was, ultimately, what separates the middle of the pack from the high achievers within a franchise system is your ability to hire and attract talent, to retain and incentivize them, and then to make tough calls when needed. It all comes down to people and being able to work with people. I mean, the successes I've seen, the failures I've seen, all comes down to having a good operator that creates a place that attracts good talent and they can recognize good talent.
I like it. I like it. So you mentioned over at Shelf Genie, you were providing a lot of support. So I guess like what was your process for I guess identifying those pain points where you had to provide support as a franchisor rather than leaving that onus on the franchisee?
Yeah, I think a lot of it was education. We would have people come in, and it's such an interesting model, that because franchising, it's B2B in a lot of cases, but you feel like it's B2C because as the business owner, you're taking money out of your own pocket. So, it's that interesting hybrid. And what I found is the people that were willing to spend on marketing and had that growth mindset and thought big about things were the ones that were most successful ultimately. It was the ones that looked at the data and got, hung up on one marketing campaign and didn't see how that, maybe was another step towards other marketing campaigns. You understand that, multi-touch attribution models, none of them were perfect. So that I'm speaking your language here. But it's ones that thought bigger about things, that were willing to test, that were willing to get out there, roll up their sleeves. And take ownership. I do think some people enter franchise systems and think that, even though they know you're in business for yourself, but not by yourself, that for yourself part, they kind of lean a little too heavy on the franchisor. And it's the 80-20 principle. I mean, 20% of your franchisees are going to provide 80% of the results.
Mhm.
And, there's going to be a small minority within that 80% that really are the laggards. And I think recognizing that early and understanding, after some coaching, will they make it? Or, ultimately, do you have to make a tough call and, kind of come to that joint decision? I think there are franchisees in most systems at the bottom that are hanging on, trying to make it work. It's embarrassment for them to potentially have to hand it over, but the sooner they realize it's not going to work, the better for everybody.
Mhm, mhm. So again, kind of switching gears a little here, John. One question I always like to ask guests is, what advice would you give someone just starting off as a franchisor?
Yeah, I'll double down on what I shared. I think picking a development group to represent you, or bringing someone on staff, full time to run your development. If you're really serious about growth, that's the path that you take. You don't try to spin your wheels trying to validate and qualify candidates. That is not the best use of a new franchisor's time. So I would just double up on that.
Okay, so tell me a bit more about bringing things in-house, like hiring someone dedicated. Do you already have to have these like systems and processes in place, or are you expecting this person to kind of implement them, be like, "Hey, this is how we're going to do things, and this is the law moving forward"?
Yeah, I would definitely look for someone that has franchise experience that comes in and knows how to run it. And oftentimes, emerging franchisors, it may be their first time into franchising, and so they've got great industry experience. But the other piece of advice I tell them is, hey, hire some franchise expertise around you, and that's something I tell candidates as well. Is hey, if we're working with an emerging franchisor that doesn't have a long history of results and everything, either they need to have had previous franchise experience, and success with another brand, or they need to bring in some people. And it could be, like I said, a development group, or it could just be hiring some personnel on their team that has franchise experience and knows how to support franchisees. That is so important to me. That's a big checkbox that I share with candidates. So I'd say, surrounding yourself with franchise expertise if you don't have it, whether that's through a development group or whether that's bringing someone in-house. But that in-house person, if they have previous development experience, can help lay out that program for you. And let's be honest, it's not rocket science. I mean, there's a few key steps involved. It's getting the software around the territory mapping. It's, obviously there Fran Connect or other great softwares out there that you can use that are off the shelf. So, but having someone with that experience, you're not having to learn it all yourself, would definitely be helpful.
Yeah. And, I'm so glad you brought this up. And I feel like I mention this every episode, but one thing that has just continuously delighted me and surprised me with the franchise industry is just how supportive everyone is in it. And it shocked me, coming from the world of marketing outside of franchises, everyone was cutthroat, competitors hated each other, didn't talk. While the franchise industry, it's like everyone's family.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. Directionally, obviously, you're going to get some in every basket that are a little different. But I'd say by and large, I mean, the support, because others are recognizing that, I mean, there's a leap of faith that's happening. There's a lot of trust involved that needs to be involved. And where things go wrong, I'd say, is where trust breaks down. But by and large, I'd say it's you want to see others succeed. It is joint shared interest, and it does have a family effect a lot of times. I'm looking forward to being with all these franchisors next week. I do feel like they're an extension of family at times. We spend a lot of time together.
Awesome. Okay, John. So I could chat with you all day, but we are nearing the end of the episode. And I like to end all of them with something that I call the lightning round. So a few fast paced questions coming at you. Are you ready?
Bring it.
All right. First question. What is your favorite tool or app that you cannot live without?
I mean, the favorite that I cannot live without would be Good Notes, without a doubt. Very similar to Evernote. There's several different types out there, but I've used Good Notes for over 3 years now on my iPad. I have no paper files. Everything is electric. Online. I love it. I use it on my iPad, my iPhone, my Mac, and couldn't live without it. It's how I stay organized.
Awesome. Next question. What is your favorite book?
Favorite book, other than the Bible, I would say Darren Hardy, The Compound Effect. I've read that several times. My wife lets me pick one book every year to have her read, and so I've had her read that one recently. It's just a great reminder. Those little things you do day in, day out add up to big results over time.
I love that. I love that. All right. Who's a franchise leader that you look up to?
Yes, leader. I'll go out on a limb here and say one of my clients, Nathan Bocock. We did a couple of deals together last year. He's based in Columbia, South Carolina. Just a great guy. He's the largest franchise owner of two men in a truck. Operates in 10 or 11 markets. Has built up a support organization, and now he, when I bring him opportunities, he'll go and buy into them. He'll pay most of the capital, and then put one of his young folks over it and give them like half the equity. So
Huh.
these people that have proven himself in his organization, he gives them more responsibility than they probably deserve, and they go out there and they prove them right every time for believing in them. So I just love the model that he's set up. I've got other clients looking to do something very similar, but just a great guy, late 30s, a lot of success early in life, and just have a lot of admiration for him.
Very cool. I love that model. Last question, John, I promise. Where can people find out more about you and your company?
Yeah, franbridgeconsulting.com. So FRAN bridgeconsulting.com. and would love to jump on a call, share some thoughts and, hear about your perspective and help in any way I can. So FranBridge Consulting, connect with me on LinkedIn. Certainly shoot me an email. It's Jon, Jon, no H, Jon at FranBridgeConsulting.com. Would love to connect.
Awesome. Jon, thank you so much for hopping on the podcast today. I appreciated it. I know our listeners are going to appreciate it and just find all of your insights very valuable. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Jordan.
No problem. Bye for now.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Franchise Marketing Podcast. If you found this episode useful, share it with a friend and subscribe now so you don't miss out on any upcoming episodes. And until then, happy marketing.